This presentation talks about the human connection to the cosmos. It was presented at midday on March 27, 2014 at the Tyler Unity Center in Tyler, Texas. This is a re-recording of the original presentation on that day. Probably David Wilcock's scientific investigations have had more to do with my own interest in metaphysics than anyone else. I am trained as an applied scientist. My doctorate degree is in engineering. David's work is mostly based on interpretation of scientific experiments, and I find that very appealing. In his book on what he calls the source field, he reports the experiments of Dr. Peter Garaiev on plants. Leaves that are energized have energetic ghost images that can be caught by camera at a different location than the material leaf itself. Similarly, two separate pieces of DNA separated by 80 miles or more sense the same stimulus faster than what an atomic clock can measure, less than 9.2 billion parts of a second. Energetic and intelligent information travels much faster than light. This does not fit the traditional teaching of science in textbooks. This fits what can be interpreted in the books of Moses in the Bible. The brain does not operate in a way that is commonly understood either. A mathematician in the United Kingdom lost 44% of his brain's matter, yet has an IQ of 126. Again, we find that the human mind is not described as the source of human reckoning in the books of Moses. These observations agree with the tabernacle structure's interpretation of how a human and the cosmos work. The understanding of Russian physicist Nikolai Kozyrev and his torsion field theories also fit the model of the cosmos that the Bible gives us. Wilcock says the cosmos's material is made of photons. The universe is divided into two parallel realities. This is modeled in the tabernacle in the wilderness by the tent and the skin coverings that cover the things inside of them. He says the atoms over there are inside out. Again, this fits the time and space models of the tabernacle curtains. And that time and space are the same stuff. This correlates to the tabernacle's rendering of how the cosmos works. And finally, that information travels instantly everywhere and is shared by everything made in the cosmos. Your version of the Bible is probably a translation of the original languages it was written in into the language you speak and read. If you're watching this video, that language is probably English. The interpretation of the Bible begins by interpreting the first 6 books of the Bible. They are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and Joshua. The first 5 books are sometimes referred to as the Pentateuch. Central to the interpretation of the Pentateuch is the building called the tabernacle. It consists of many parts that are described in great detail. To illustrate my point, this is a picture of an automobile. Let's imagine you've never seen one before. You see all of the parts on the outside and wonder what they might be for. Someone tells you that the 4 round rubber parts are there to lift the car off the ground. The rubber parts have air in them, and when the air is drained from them, the rubber parts deflate and lower the car to the ground. So this interpretation makes sense if you don't know anything else about the car. In other words, you don't understand how all the other parts work. But if you have a comprehensive understanding of all of the parts and their functions, you'll immediately realize that these parts, called tires, have a different role than lifting the car off the ground. The interpretation of the first 6 books of the Bible is like understanding how an automobile works. If someone, anyone, cannot supply you with a comprehensive explanation of what the form and function of the Pentateuch is, then I wouldn't believe anything they say. It's a truth detector. It's not your responsibility to be able to interpret the Bible. It is your responsibility to make sure that whoever claims to understand the Bible can demonstrate to you that they have a comprehensive understanding of all aspects of the Pentateuch. In particular, ask them to explain all of the parts of the Pentateuch and what their function is. Nothing in the Bible can be understood without this comprehensive understanding. The Psalms, the prophets, and especially all of the New Testament cannot be understood without understanding completely the Bible's first 6 books. To help you out with what I mean by comprehensive analyses, let me show you what I mean. This is an illustration of an object that was in a place called in Hebrew the mikdash. It's actually made of 2 separate parts. The main part is called a lampstand, or in Hebrew, menorah. The other parts are individual lamps that were removable. They held olive oil that was lit by a priest. The lamps in the menorah have form and function. But what are they, and what do they mean? Here are a series of questions you might ask someone who claims to understand the teachings of the Pentateuch. Why does the menorah sit on dirt? Why is it made of gold? Why are there 6 branches from the central stalk? Why is it made like a plant? Why is it measured by weight? Why is its function to light the bread table towards the north? Why was it covered in a blue cloth when it was transported to a new location? Christians will recognize these words from Revelation chapter 2 verse 1. The church at Ephesus is addressed by the one who walks among the 7 golden lampstands. How can anyone say they understand what this verse might mean if they cannot answer simple questions like the ones we have just listed? You should insist anyone who claims to represent any organization that claims to know what the Bible means provide you with a complete and convincing explanation of what the first 6 books of the Bible mean. This is a picture of the Andromeda Galaxy. It has matter and energy. A philosophical question is this all there is? Metaphysical naturalism's answer is yes, that's all there is. The first 6 books of the Bible's answer to this question is no, it isn't. The cosmos is made for the purpose of Elohim. This cannot be understood only from a universe of matter and energy. Metaphysical naturalism says that's all there is in the universe. Elohim make model forms like our earth and sky that teach us about the true nature of the cosmos. The principal model form are humans themselves, made in the image and like the likeness of Elohim. And now modern science makes it clear that our measurable cosmos is connected to something else that cannot be measured. Life is the connection between the measurable and unmeasurable parts of the cosmos. There are 4 parts of a human. The first part is neshama. The second part is soul. The third part is dust. The fourth part is nakedness. Only the first part is connected with life. The neshama of lives connects us to the intelligent energy of life that causes life to exist in our cosmos. In Genesis chapter 2, we're told it's transferred from Elohim to the human Adam directly. We said that neshama is the thing that causes life. But Genesis chapter 2 verse 7 also says that the soul is living when neshama is obtained by the human Adam. So what does the soul have to do with life? This is the first part of the book of Proverbs chapter 23 verse 7. It describes what a human is. The King James Version Hebrew to English translation says it refers to thinking in the heart. According to this translation, this heart thinking is what a human is. The New American Standard Bible translation is a little closer to the Hebrew. It replaces heart with himself. In the translator's footnotes, It says the more literal translation would be reckons in his soul. This is much better, but still not an accurate representation of what the Hebrew says. This is an interlinear translation. The verb that describes the action is very rare. One source says it's the only occurrence of this word in all of the Hebrew text. It's the Hebrew sha'ar that means to open like a gate. I have outlined this word in green. The Hebrew word for gate is derived from this verb. A more accurate translation could be, like he opens a gate in his soul, so is he. The gate to the tabernacle courtyard was always open. When the tabernacle was set up, things would pass through this gate. It was guarded by the males from the tribe of Levi because it was always open. The soul has within itself a gate that is always open. This living soul answers questions many ask about what human consciousness is.